What's up guys, today we're going to be having a look at the latest release from Aerotec watches. It's their Ace model. This is a watch that's going on Kickstarter in January and it's going to be priced around $300. I've been sent two of their watches, both the Ace and their previous model, the Sea Hunt. I'm going to be reviewing the Sea Hunt over the next couple of weeks, so be on the lookout for that if you're interested. It's a very nice watch also. However, the star of today's show is this Ace. Obviously, as you can see, this is a fully bronzed out case except for the case back. Very nice looking watch. 40mm diameter, has a 20mm lug width, 47mm lug to lug. It's got a sapphire crystal, slightly domed. It's got that gradient effect on the dial. This is kind of their copper colored dial. I'm not sure what I'd call it because in some lights it looks a bit more reddish, in some other lights it looks a bit more dark brown. However, I probably would have gone for the blue dial version of this watch. They didn't have that available to send in for review, so just personal preference, I think the blue just has that extra level of pop of it's a bit more dynamic when you compare it with the actual color of the case. I think the color of the dial and the tone of the bronze on the case are too similar for my taste. However, obviously colors are completely subjective. Now, one thing I do have to mention is that dial is very well executed. That gradient effect looks great under any light conditions. You have highly polished minute and hour hands, also a highly polished seconds hand. You have the cutout Arabic numerals, and you also have a bezel. And it may be hard to see on the video, but I am turning this bezel. Very little playback on the bezel, very solid bezel. And the reason it has a bezel is because this watch can be transformed from a pilot to a diver by just removing the bezel and changing it over. Now, I chose not to do that for this video. I didn't want to scratch up the case of the watch because I do have to send this one back after the review. However, I think that with this combination of the dive bezel on this watch, you've got a real winner. I much prefer the dive variation for this watch than the pilot one. I think it just adds a lot more to the aesthetic of the watch, and obviously I prefer diver watches as it is. So it's definitely one thing to keep in mind. You do have those alternatives, so it's just up to personal preference. This has a Seiko NH38 movement, so the right movement for this kind of a watch. I've seen so many micro brands that use Seiko NH36, which obviously has a calendar which leaves you with a ghost position on the crown. So whenever a micro brand makes sure to use the right movement for their type of watch, it's always a plus. The back has this embossed signature with the Aerotec logo on a stainless steel case. It's quite nice looking, nothing too intricate, but it does look good. Now, we also have obviously super luminova on this watch, which has around the 3-4 hour mark of duration at full brightness. It's very good, very generously applied. As you can see, the straps are genuine leather. You have the quick release tool so that you don't have to be messing around with any extra tools. You have obviously the buckle and the hardware bits in bronze, which I think is absolutely essential if you're going to have a bronze case on a watch. At this angle, you start to see a bit of that domed sapphire crystal. I'm not sure if it has an application of anti-reflective coating. I couldn't find that on the website. However, it does do a good job at avoiding many reflections and glares that you get even when you're right in front of a window in a bright day as it is in this shot. Now, on the case, you can see it has a signed crown with the Aerotec logo. It has a brushed finish throughout the case. Obviously, you're not really going to expect to see a lot of different variations in finishes when we're talking about a bronze watch because of how hard it is to be able to get those different kinds of finishes from this material. So I think that with the material that we're using, they've done a really nice job, especially comparing this to other bronze watches I've reviewed on this channel, like the Balder Aventurin. I think that this just has a much more elegant and refined look to the finish. It's kind of like a wavy brushed finish, which looks really good, especially at this size of 40mm. I think this is the kind of watch that, especially in its pilot variation, it's going to play really nicely as both a dress watch and a more casual everyday watch, obviously depending a lot on what color dial you go for and also what strap you decide to match this up with. You can see the cutouts for the Arabic numerals, which add that extra depth to the dial, which I'm quite fond of. It reminds me of Panerai, it reminds me of a few other watches that I've shown on this channel. And here you can see how not just the dial but also the bezel of the watch play with the light very nicely. The finishing on both the dial and the bezel are quite similar, which gives it kind of this continuous effect, which once again, if you're into that kind of thing on your watches and you don't really like contrast between the bezel and the dial, I think you're going to be really happy with this watch. Now, it's a very comfortable fit. It sits a bit tall, but just keep in mind that it's a 13mm watch. However, comfortable fit, perfect size in terms of low dimensions for my 7-inch wrist, so not a problem there. Now keep in mind that this is going on Kickstarter in January. For the price, I think that especially considering this is a bronze watch, I think you have a really good value proposition here. So if you're into this brand and this design, be sure to check out their campaign and their website, links in the description. Hope you enjoyed the review. Till the next time, guys, peace.